What if humanity has been asking the wrong question all along? Instead of wondering whether we are alone in the universe, perhaps we should be asking why thousands of people, separated by continents, cultures, and generations, continue to describe remarkably similar beings, from isolated farmers and commercial pilots to military personnel and astronauts. Reports of mysterious humanoid entities have appeared for decades. Some dismiss these stories as folklore, psychological phenomena, or misidentifications. Others believe they may represent encounters with something far beyond our current understanding. Whatever the truth may be, one thing is undeniable. These accounts have shaped modern UFO history like few other mysteries ever have. Since the late 1940s, following the wave of unidentified flying object reports that swept across the United States, investigators have collected thousands of testimonies describing unusual aerial phenomena and their alleged occupants. While many reports were eventually explained as natural or man-made events, a significant number remained unresolved. More intriguing still, witnesses who had never met one another often described humanoid figures sharing strikingly similar physical characteristics. This recurring pattern became one of the most debated aspects of modern ufology. Before exploring these alleged extraterrestrial races, an important distinction must be made. Throughout this documentary, documented historical events will be clearly separated from eyewitness testimony, scientific evidence, speculative hypotheses, and interpretations proposed by UFO researchers. Many of the cases discussed remain controversial, and none of the described beings have been scientifically confirmed. Our goal is not to prove or disprove their existence, but to examine why these descriptions have become so deeply embedded within the history of unexplained phenomena. For decades, psychologists have suggested that many encounters could be influenced by sleep paralysis, memory reconstruction, cultural expectations, or altered states of consciousness. At the same time, physicists continue searching for evidence of life beyond Earth through radio astronomy, exoplanet research, and missions exploring our own solar system. Meanwhile, governments around the world have gradually acknowledged that some unidentified aerial phenomena remain unexplained, even if no official institution has concluded that extraterrestrial visitors are responsible. Among every description ever recorded, one particular figure appears more frequently than any other. Small, slender, gray-skinned beings with enormous black eyes have become the universal symbol of alleged alien encounters. Their image has appeared in thousands of witness accounts, books, documentaries, films, and government-related speculation. Whether these entities represent a genuine external phenomenon, a recurring psychological archetype, or a cultural icon born from decades of storytelling remains one of the greatest unanswered questions in modern ufology. They are commonly known as the small grays. The extraordinary consistency of these descriptions raises an unavoidable question. Why would individuals from different countries, speaking different languages, and living in completely different social environments repeatedly describe beings that appear almost identical? Is this evidence of a shared human imagination shaped by popular culture? Or could these recurring descriptions point toward a phenomenon that humanity has not yet learned to explain? To begin answering that question, we must first examine the anatomy, behavior, and historical cases most commonly associated with the small grays. In the next chapter, we begin with the most recognizable alleged extraterrestrial species in modern history. From the famous Betty and Barney Hill case to the accounts of Travis Walton, the small grays have become inseparable from the phenomenon of alien abduction. But what do these reports actually describe? And how much of what we think we know comes from documented testimony rather than verifiable evidence? Among all alleged extraterrestrial species described throughout modern UFO history, none has become more recognizable than the beings commonly known as the small grays. Their image has transcended eyewitness testimony, becoming deeply embedded in popular culture through books, films, television, and documentaries. Yet long before Hollywood embraced their appearance, remarkably similar descriptions had already begun appearing in reports collected by UFO investigators. Whether these similarities point to a genuine external phenomenon, shared psychological mechanisms, or cultural influence remains an open question. Across hundreds of reported encounters, witnesses consistently describe beings standing between 3 and 5 feet tall, with unusually slender bodies and disproportionately large heads. Their skin is often said to be smooth, hairless, and gray, although some accounts describe pale beige or slightly bluish tones. Their most striking feature is undoubtedly their enormous almond-shaped black eyes, which appear to lack visible pupils or sclera. Some researchers have suggested these eyes may function as protective biological lenses, while others speculate they could be artificial coverings. No scientific evidence currently supports either interpretation. Descriptions of the face remain surprisingly consistent. Witnesses often report only tiny nostrils, a narrow slit where the mouth should be, and either no visible ears or extremely small auditory openings. Their neck appears thin, supporting a skull much larger than that of a human being. Their arms are typically longer in proportion to the body, ending in delicate hands with 3 or 4 elongated fingers. Although these details recur in numerous testimonies, they originate almost entirely from eyewitness accounts rather than physical evidence. The physiology attributed to the small grays has generated countless hypotheses within ufology. Some researchers have proposed that these beings might possess highly efficient biological systems requiring minimal muscular strength because advanced technology performs most physical labor. Others have speculated that they could represent genetically engineered organisms rather than naturally evolved biological species. These ideas, however, remain speculative and have never been demonstrated through verifiable scientific investigation. Communication is another recurring theme. Rather than speaking aloud, witnesses frequently report receiving thoughts directly into their minds, describing what they interpret as telepathic exchanges. These experiences are often characterized by an absence of emotion, with information appearing instantly rather than through spoken language. Neuroscientists have noted that altered states of consciousness can produce intensely vivid subjective experiences, making it difficult to distinguish internal perception from external reality. Consequently, these accounts remain intriguing but unverified. Perhaps no aspect of the small grays has inspired more fascination than the extraordinary technology attributed to them. Witnesses frequently describe seamless metallic craft without visible rivets or propulsion systems, examination rooms illuminated by diffuse light, and instruments unlike any known medical equipment. Some accounts even mention apparent control of gravity, silent flight, and instantaneous acceleration. While these descriptions have become iconic within UFO literature, no recovered technology has been publicly verified as extraterrestrial in origin. The popularity of the small gray image expanded dramatically after several famous encounter cases entered public discussion. Stories such as the alleged abduction of Betty and Barney Hill, the Travis Walton incident, the Pascagoula encounter, and the Allagash experiences would forever shape public perception of these mysterious beings. Each case contains unique details, yet together they established many of the recurring characteristics that continue to define the small gray archetype today. In the next chapter, we will examine these landmark cases individually, separating documented history from personal testimony and exploring why they remain among the most debated events in the history of ufology. No discussion of the small grays would be complete without examining the encounters that transformed them into the most recognizable alleged extraterrestrial beings in modern history. While none of these incidents has produced conclusive scientific proof of alien visitation, each became a milestone in UFO research and continues to influence public perception. The following cases should be understood as documented historical events, in the sense that they were reported, investigated, and widely discussed, not as verified evidence that extraterrestrial beings were involved. The first case to permanently reshape the alien encounter narrative occurred on the night of September 19, 1961. Betty and Barney Hill, an interracial couple returning home through the White Mountains of New Hampshire, reported observing an unusual object following their vehicle. After arriving home, they noticed missing time, damaged clothing, and fragmented memories. Years later, under hypnosis, both described remarkably similar accounts involving medical examinations aboard a craft by short gray-skinned humanoids with large eyes. Although hypnosis remains a controversial investigative technique, the Hill case became one of the foundational stories of modern abduction research. The Hill case introduced many elements that would later become standard within UFO literature: missing time, telepathic communication, medical examinations, and humanoid beings possessing advanced technology. Supporters argue that the consistency of Betty and Barney's independent recollections is compelling. Skeptics, however, point to the limitations of hypnotic memory retrieval, emphasizing that hypnosis can unintentionally reinforce imagined narratives rather than recover objective events. Decades later, the debate remains unresolved. Another case that profoundly influenced UFO culture unfolded in Arizona in 1975. Logger Travis Walton reportedly disappeared after he and 6 coworkers encountered a glowing object hovering above a forest clearing. According to the witnesses, Walton approached the object before being struck by what appeared to be a beam of light. He vanished for 5 days, prompting one of the largest missing person investigations in the state's history. When he reappeared, Walton claimed he had awakened inside an unfamiliar environment surrounded by small humanoid beings. Unlike many reports collected through hypnosis alone, the Walton case included multiple eyewitnesses who agreed on the initial sighting of the unidentified object, though not on what happened afterward. Polygraph examinations administered over the years produced mixed interpretations depending on methodology and examiner, leaving supporters and critics with very different conclusions. The incident remains one of the most extensively debated cases in UFO history. Only 2 years earlier, another remarkable account emerged from Pascagoula, Mississippi. Shipyard workers Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker reported encountering a glowing craft while fishing along the Pascagoula River. They claimed to have been taken aboard against their will by strange humanoid entities unlike anything they had ever seen. While their descriptions varied somewhat from the now familiar small gray appearance, later interpretations frequently grouped the incident within the broader gray phenomenon because of similarities involving involuntary examination and nonverbal communication. The Allagash abductions added another layer to the mystery. During a camping trip in the Maine wilderness in 1976, 4 college students reported observing an intensely bright object over Eagle Lake. Years later, under hypnosis, each described remarkably similar memories of being examined aboard an unidentified craft by small gray humanoids. Critics once again questioned the reliability of hypnotically recovered memories, while supporters argued that the consistency among multiple witnesses deserved serious consideration. Like many famous UFO cases, the Allagash incident remains suspended between testimony and uncertainty. Taken together, these cases established the visual and behavioral blueprint of what the world now recognizes as the small grays. Whether interpreted as genuine encounters, psychological experiences, cultural narratives, or a combination of all three, they profoundly shaped modern ufology. Yet the small grays are only one part of a much larger picture. Many researchers claim that witnesses have also described taller, more imposing gray beings, entities allegedly occupying a different role within these extraordinary encounters. In the next chapter, we examine the mysterious tall grays. While the small grays dominate popular culture, another category appears repeatedly throughout UFO literature, the beings commonly referred to as the tall grays. Unlike their smaller counterparts, these entities are generally described as standing between 6 and 8 feet tall, with elongated limbs, broader shoulders, and a commanding presence. Reports often portray them as authority figures, supervising the smaller grays during alleged encounters. It is important to emphasize that these descriptions come from eyewitness testimony and speculative literature rather than verified scientific evidence. Witnesses frequently describe tall grays as moving with remarkable precision and calmness. Unlike the smaller beings, which are often portrayed as performing technical tasks, tall grays are commonly depicted as observers or decision-makers. Some experiencers claim these entities communicated telepathically with a level of emotional detachment, conveying information without visible expressions. Whether these similarities arise from shared cultural narratives or independent experiences remains a matter of debate. One of the most controversial sources describing tall grays is Charles Hall, a former United States Air Force weather observer. During the 1990s, Hall published a series of books titled Millennial Hospitality, claiming that while stationed at the Nellis Air Force Range in Nevada during the 1960s, he encountered tall extraterrestrial beings known as the Tall Whites. Although Hall's primary descriptions concern the Tall Whites rather than tall grays, some readers and researchers have drawn comparisons between the two groups due to overlapping physical characteristics and alleged interactions with military personnel. These claims have never been independently verified. Within certain branches of exopolitical literature, tall grays are sometimes described as occupying a higher position in an alleged extraterrestrial hierarchy. According to these speculative narratives, they coordinate scientific operations, supervise biological research, and rarely interact directly with humans unless necessary. These ideas originate from books, conferences, and witness accounts rather than empirical research, and they remain highly controversial even within the UFO community itself. In striking contrast to the mysterious Greys stands another alleged group that appears throughout contact literature, the Nordics. Described as nearly indistinguishable from humans, these beings are said to possess tall, athletic builds, fair skin, light-colored eyes, and blonde or white hair. Their appearance resembles Northern European populations, a similarity that has fueled both fascination and criticism among researchers studying the origins of these accounts. The Nordics became widely known during the 1950s through the claims of George Adamski, one of the earliest and most influential contactees in UFO history. Adamski stated that he met friendly visitors from Venus who warned humanity about the dangers of nuclear weapons and urged peaceful global cooperation. While historians recognize Adamski's publications as culturally significant within the UFO movement, his extraordinary claims have never been supported by verifiable evidence and are generally rejected by the scientific community. Decades later, Swiss contactee Billy Meier expanded the Nordic narrative by claiming long-term interactions with beings he identified as Pleiadians, or more precisely, Plagiarians. His photographs, films, and written accounts attracted worldwide attention while simultaneously generating intense skepticism. Supporters argue that his material contains unexplained details, whereas critics have challenged the authenticity of several photographs and physical models associated with the case. The debate surrounding Meier remains one of the most polarizing in modern ufology. Across many contact narratives, Nordics are portrayed as compassionate, spiritually advanced, and deeply concerned with humanity's ethical development. Unlike the emotionally detached Greys described in many abduction reports, Nordics are often depicted as encouraging free will, environmental stewardship, and peaceful coexistence. Whether these portrayals reflect genuine experiences, symbolic archetypes, or cultural ideals projected onto extraterrestrial imagery remains uncertain. Scholars of religion and psychology have even suggested that Nordic accounts may mirror humanity's long-standing tradition of describing luminous, celestial messengers. As the catalog of alleged extraterrestrial visitors expanded, even more unusual figures emerged from witness testimony. Some described towering insect-like intelligences overseeing examinations. Others reported encounters with reptilian humanoids possessing immense physical presence and unsettling eyes. These accounts would introduce entirely new dimensions to the mythology of UFO encounters. In the next chapter, we explore two of the most controversial groups in modern ufology, the Reptilians and the Mantids. Among all the alleged extraterrestrial races described throughout UFO literature, few have generated as much fascination and controversy as the Reptilians. Unlike the Greys or the Nordics, these beings are typically portrayed as towering humanoids with distinctly reptilian characteristics. Witnesses often describe muscular bodies covered in textured scales, elongated faces, slit-like nostrils, pronounced jaws, and large eyes with vertical pupils resembling those of predatory reptiles. These descriptions originate primarily from eyewitness testimony, speculative books, and modern UFO folklore, rather than verifiable scientific evidence. According to experiencers, reptilians are physically imposing, often estimated to stand between 7 and 9 feet tall. They are frequently described as possessing exceptional strength, rapid reflexes, and an intimidating presence. Reports also attribute advanced intelligence and sophisticated technology to these beings, although the nature of that technology varies considerably between accounts. As with every species discussed in this documentary, these descriptions remain unverified and should be understood as claims made within the broader context of UFO literature. The modern image of the reptilian became widely known through the work of British author David Icke. Beginning in the 1990s, Icke proposed the controversial hypothesis that shape-shifting reptilian beings secretly influence world events by disguising themselves as human leaders. His ideas gained a significant following in certain conspiracy circles, but have been broadly rejected by historians, political scientists, and the scientific community due to the absence of credible supporting evidence. Even within ufology, many researchers distance themselves from these claims, considering them speculative rather than investigative. Long before these modern theories emerged, however, reptilian humanoids already appeared in myths and religious traditions around the world. Ancient civilizations depicted serpent-like deities as creators, protectors, or agents of chaos. From the feathered serpent of Mesoamerica to dragon legends in Asia, and serpent gods of the ancient Near East. Scholars generally interpret these figures as powerful cultural symbols rather than historical evidence of extraterrestrial visitors. Nevertheless, some UFO researchers argue that such recurring imagery reflects memories of encounters preserved through mythology, an interpretation that remains highly speculative. If reptilians represent power and physical dominance within UFO folklore, another group is often described as embodying extraordinary intelligence. Known as the Mantids, or insectoids, these beings are consistently portrayed as resembling giant praying mantises standing between 7 and 10 feet tall. Witnesses describe elongated limbs, narrow torsos, triangular heads, and enormous compound-like eyes that appear capable of observing every movement without visible emotion. Among individuals reporting alleged abduction experiences, mantids are frequently described as supervisors rather than technicians. While smaller greys are often said to perform examinations or operate equipment, mantids are portrayed as calmly observing the procedures, occasionally communicating through what witnesses interpret as telepathy. Many experiencers describe an overwhelming sense of intelligence emanating from these entities, accompanied by an emotional detachment similar to that attributed to the greys. These reports remain anecdotal and have not been independently verified. Some researchers have suggested that the recurring appearance of mantids across unrelated testimonies deserves closer psychological and sociological study. Others argue that the insect-like appearance may reflect deeply rooted evolutionary fears shared by humans, making these figures particularly memorable during altered states of consciousness. At present, no scientific consensus supports the existence of mantids as extraterrestrial beings. Yet their remarkable consistency across decades of testimony continues to make them one of the most intriguing figures in modern UFO folklore. From towering reptilian figures to silent insect-like observers, the diversity of alleged extraterrestrial beings described throughout UFO history is extraordinary. Yet one final group remains, one whose descriptions are remarkably human, whose alleged connection to military installations has fueled decades of speculation, and whose story continues to divide researchers. In our final chapter, we examine the mysterious tall whites, before comparing every race discussed in this documentary and asking the ultimate question: why do these stories continue to endure? The final group in our exploration is one of the least known to the general public, yet one of the most frequently discussed in certain military-related UFO narratives: the tall whites. Unlike the small greys or the insect-like mantids, these beings are described as remarkably human in appearance. Witnesses portray them as exceptionally tall, often between 6 and 8 feet, with extremely pale skin, light-colored eyes, and fine white or silver hair. According to these accounts, they possess advanced technology while displaying behaviors that can range from cautious curiosity to quiet cooperation with selected human personnel. As with every species covered in this documentary, these descriptions originate from testimony and speculative literature rather than scientifically verified evidence. Much of what is written about the tall whites stems from the accounts of former U.S. Air Force weather observer Charles Hall. In his series of books, Hall claimed that while stationed near the Nellis Air Force Range during the 1960s, he encountered a community of tall white beings allegedly living in restricted desert areas. According to Hall, these visitors maintained limited interactions with military personnel under carefully controlled conditions. His extraordinary claims have never been independently confirmed, and no official documentation has verified the existence of such encounters. Nevertheless, his writings remain highly influential within modern UFO literature. When comparing all the alleged extraterrestrial races described throughout modern ufology, several recurring patterns begin to emerge. Small greys appear most frequently in abduction reports and are often associated with medical examinations and telepathic communication. Tall greys are typically portrayed as supervisors or authority figures. Nordics are commonly described as peaceful messengers, encouraging spiritual and ethical development. Reptilians are often linked to narratives involving power and control, while mantids are depicted as highly intelligent observers, overseeing complex procedures. Finally, the tall whites occupy a unique place within stories involving alleged military cooperation. These patterns reflect recurring themes within witness testimony, not established scientific classifications. Despite their differences, nearly every category shares several remarkable characteristics. Witnesses consistently describe advanced technology, silent propulsion systems, apparent telepathic communication, and an intelligence that seems to surpass our own. Yet there's another striking commonality. No alleged species has been confirmed through reproducible scientific evidence. Every account ultimately relies on personal testimony, disputed physical traces, photographs of uncertain origin, or interpretations that remain open to debate. This distinction is essential. Curiosity should inspire investigation, but extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. So why do thousands of people from different countries and cultures continue describing beings with surprisingly similar features? Some psychologists suggest these reports emerge from common neurological processes, dreams, sleep paralysis, or shared cultural imagery. Others propose that archetypes embedded deep within the human mind may influence how extraordinary experiences are interpreted. Meanwhile, proponents of the extraterrestrial hypothesis argue that recurring similarities across decades of testimony deserve continued investigation. At present, none of these explanations fully accounts for every reported case. The search for intelligent life beyond Earth is no longer confined to science fiction. Modern astronomy has identified thousands of exoplanets, robotic missions continue exploring our solar system, and international scientific projects search the cosmos for signs of distant civilizations. While these efforts have not confirmed the existence of any of the beings described in UFO literature, they remind us that the universe is unimaginably vast, and that humanity has explored only a tiny fraction of it. Whether the small grays, tall grays, Nordics, reptilians, mantids, and tall whites represent misunderstood psychological experiences, evolving cultural myths, unidentified natural phenomena, or something entirely beyond our current understanding, remains one of the greatest unanswered questions of our time. The evidence is incomplete, the debate continues, and perhaps that uncertainty is precisely what keeps this mystery alive. Every generation has looked toward the night sky, searching for answers. Ancient civilizations saw gods among the stars. Modern science sees distant galaxies and countless worlds. Between those two perspectives lies a frontier filled with questions that continue to challenge our imagination and our understanding of reality. Whether these stories ultimately reveal visitors from beyond Earth, or simply the extraordinary complexity of the human mind, one truth remains unchanged. Our desire to understand the unknown is as infinite as the universe itself. Perhaps the greatest mystery is not whether someone is watching us from the stars, but whether humanity is finally ready to understand what it finds when it looks back.